The detective looked me straight in the eyes, his weathered face carved with the kind of certainty that comes from 20 years on the force, and said the words that would haunt me for months. She never entered that train, but I saw her with my own eyes. The rain was still falling that Tuesday evening when Detective Morrison delivered his verdict in the cramped coffee shop across from Union Station. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that made his pale skin look almost ghostly. Outside, the storm hammered against the windows with a violence that seemed to echo the chaos in my chest. "The security footage shows you standing alone on Platform 7, he continued, sliding a manila envelope across the sticky table. "Alone, Mr. Chen, from 6:47 p.m. until 7:23 p.m. No woman in a red coat, no suitcase, just you." The metallic scent of wet steel drifted through the station's entrance every time someone opened the door. That smell. I remembered it so clearly from that night. The way it mixed with the diesel fumes and the distant echo of announcements bouncing off the vaulted ceiling. The way Sarah's heels clicked against the wet concrete as she walked toward Car 3, her small black suitcase trailing behind her like a faithful dog. I could still see her face when she turned back to look at me one last time. The way the station's harsh lights caught the worry lines around her green eyes, the way her lips pressed together in that thin line she always made when she was fighting back tears. "You don't understand," I whispered, my voice cracking. I watched her get on. I saw the conductor help her with her bag. I saw the train pull away with her inside. Detective Morrison's expression didn't change. He'd probably heard 1,000 desperate relatives clinging to impossible stories. But this wasn't a story. This wasn't denial or grief playing tricks on my mind. This was the truth, and somehow, impossibly, the evidence said I was lying. The coffee shop's bell chimed as another customer entered, shaking rain from their umbrella. The mundane sound felt obscene in that moment, too normal for a conversation that was tearing apart everything I thought I knew about reality. My hands trembled as I reached for the envelope, and I could taste copper in my mouth, the metallic tang of fear. Because if Sarah never got on that train, where the hell was she? Sarah Martinez had been my wife for 3 years, but I'd known her for 7. We met at a bookstore in downtown Portland, one of those cramped, dusty places that smelled like old paper and dreams deferred. She was reaching for a copy of The Stranger on a shelf just beyond her fingertips, her dark hair falling in waves over her shoulder as she stretched upward. "Need some help?" I'd asked, and when she turned around, those green eyes hit me like a punch to the chest. "I can manage," she'd said with a smile that made my knees weak. "But thanks for asking." That was Sarah, fiercely independent, always convinced she could handle whatever life threw at her. Even when life threw her a husband who worked 60-hour weeks at an accounting firm and forgot anniversaries. But something had changed in the weeks leading up to that night at the station. The woman who used to greet me with stories about her day at the non-profit where she worked as a social coordinator had become a stranger who barely looked up from her phone during dinner. Our conversations, once flowing like rivers, had dried up into awkward tributaries of "how was work?" and "did you pay the electric bill?" 3 weeks before she vanished, Sarah started staying late at the office. When I'd call, her assistant would tell me she was in a meeting or stepped out. When she finally came home, usually after 9 p.m., she'd claim she was just catching up on paperwork. "Everything okay at work?" I'd asked one Thursday night as she pushed pasta around on her plate, barely eating. "Fine," she'd said, not meeting my eyes. "Just busy season, you know how it is." But I didn't know how it was. Sarah had never been secretive before. She was the kind of person who told me about every weird conversation she had with the barista at our local coffee shop, every stray cat she'd seen on her lunch break, every small triumph and frustration of her day. The text messages became shorter too, where she used to send me funny memes during work or photos of interesting clouds. Now I got responses like "okay" and "running late" and "don't wait up." 2 weeks before the train station, I found her crying in our bedroom. She was sitting on the edge of our bed, still in her work clothes, mascara streaking down her cheeks like dark rivers. "Sarah, what's wrong?" I'd rushed to her side, but she flinched when I tried to touch her shoulder. "I can't," she'd started, then shook her head violently. "I can't do this anymore, David." My stomach had dropped to my feet. "Can't do what? Our marriage?" "No, not that." She'd wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving black smears across her knuckles. "Work stuff. It's complicated." "Then let me help you figure it out." She'd looked at me then with an expression I'd never seen before, part love, part terror, part something else I couldn't identify. "Some things you can't fix, David. Some things just are." The last normal conversation we had was 5 days before she disappeared. I was making scrambled eggs for breakfast when she came into the kitchen, already dressed for work in a navy blazer I didn't recognize. "We need to talk," she'd said, her voice tight with an emotion I couldn't name. "But not here." "Why not here?" I'd asked, turning from the stove to face her. "This is our home, Sarah. This is where we talk." She'd glanced around our kitchen, at the coffee mugs we'd bought on our honeymoon, at the refrigerator covered with photos of us hiking and laughing and being young, like she was seeing it for the last time. "Not about this," she'd whispered. I never found out what this was, and now she was gone, vanished into thin air like smoke, leaving behind only my impossible memories and a detective who insisted she never existed on that platform at all. The morning Sarah disappeared started like any other Tuesday, except for the fact that she was humming. I found her in the kitchen at 6:30 a.m., already dressed in that red wool coat I'd bought her last Christmas. She was making coffee with a lightness in her step I hadn't seen in weeks, humming some tune I didn't recognize. The sight of her almost happiness was so jarring after the recent weeks of silence that I stopped in the doorway, afraid to break whatever spell had lifted her mood. "Morning," I said carefully, testing the waters. She turned to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, but was more genuine than anything I'd seen from her lately. "Morning, honey. Coffee's almost ready." There was something different about her that morning, an energy, like someone who'd finally made a difficult decision. She moved with purpose, checking her phone, adjusting her purse strap, glancing at the clock with the kind of nervous anticipation you see in people about to jump out of airplanes. "You seem better today," I ventured, accepting the coffee mug she handed me. "I am better," she said, and for just a moment her mask slipped. I saw exhaustion underneath, bone-deep weariness mixed with something that looked like relief. "Everything's going to be okay now, David." The way she said my name, like she was memorizing the sound of it, should have been my first warning. I had a client meeting that afternoon that ran late, some corporate tax nightmare that kept me at the office until nearly 7 p.m. I was walking to my car when my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Union Station, Platform 7. Now." No explanation, no context, just those 5 words that would change everything. I called her immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. Her voice, recorded weeks earlier in happier times, chirped, "Hi, you've reached Sarah. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." The contrast between that cheerful recording and whatever darkness had been consuming her lately made my chest tight. The drive to Union Station took 23 minutes through downtown traffic. 23 minutes of my mind racing through possibilities. Was she finally ready to tell me what had been eating at her? Was this about her job? About us? The cryptic text felt like both an invitation and a goodbye. I found parking in the nearby garage and jogged through the rain to the main entrance. The station was bustling with the usual evening commuters, their conversations blending into a low hum that mixed with the echo of footsteps and the distant rumble of arriving trains. The air smelled like wet concrete and diesel fuel, with undertones of coffee and pretzels from the food court. Platform 7 was at the far end of the station, past the main waiting area, and down a corridor lined with departure boards. As I hurried through the crowd, checking my phone obsessively for another message that never came, I felt like I was walking towards something irreversible. And then I saw her. Sarah stood near the edge of Platform 7, that red coat unmistakable even from a distance. She had her back to me, facing the tracks where the 7:15 to Chicago was just pulling in, with a screech of brakes and a hiss of air pressure. Her small black suitcase, the one she'd used for work trips, sat beside her feet. "Sarah!" I called out, but my voice was swallowed by the noise of the arriving train. She turned at the sound of her name, and I saw her face clearly under the harsh platform lights. There was something in her expression I'd never seen before. Not quite fear, not quite sadness, but a kind of resolved desperation that made my blood run cold. She raised her hand in what might have been a wave, or might have been a gesture for me to stay back. I was still 50 feet away, pushing through a cluster of passengers heading for the train, when she picked up her suitcase and walked toward the open doors of car 3. The conductor, a middle-aged man with a grey beard, helped her up the steps. I saw him take her suitcase, saw her thank him with a nod. I saw her pause in the doorway and look back at me one last time. The look on her face was goodbye, not "see you later" or "we'll talk soon." It was the kind of goodbye you give someone when you know you'll never see them again. "Sarah, wait!" I shouted, breaking into a run, but the doors were already closing. The train lurched forward with a mechanical groan, and I watched my wife disappear into the night, her face a pale oval in the window of car 3, until the train rounded a curve and vanished into the darkness. I stood there on the empty platform, rain-soaked and breathing hard, staring at the tracks where the red taillights had just disappeared. The station slowly returned to its normal rhythm around me, but I felt like I was standing in the eye of a hurricane. I had no idea that in less than 12 hours, Detective Morrison would tell me that none of it had happened, that according to every camera, every witness, every piece of evidence they could find, Sarah Martinez had never been on Platform 7 at all. The manila envelope Detective Morrison slid across the coffee shop table contained 47 minutes of security footage and the end of my sanity. "Take your time," he said, settling back in his chair with the weary patience of a man who'd watched too many people's worlds collapse in real time. "But I need you to understand what we're looking at here." I opened the envelope with trembling fingers, my heart hammering against my ribs like a caged animal. Inside were printed screenshots from the station's security cameras, timestamp after timestamp showing Platform 7 from multiple angles. My mouth went dry as I flipped through them. 6:47 p.m. Platform 7, empty except for a janitor mopping near the benches. 6:52 p.m. A businessman in a navy suit checking his phone. 6:58 p.m. The businessman boarding the 7 train to Portland. 7:03 p.m. Empty platform again. 7:11 p.m. Me, standing alone near the edge of the platform, looking around frantically. 7:15 p.m. Still me, alone, staring at the arriving Chicago train. 7:18 p.m. Me running toward the train, my mouth open like I was shouting something. 11:21 p.m. Me standing motionless as the train pulled away, rain plastering my hair to my forehead. "This doesn't make sense," I whispered, flipping back through the images. "Where is she? Where's Sarah?" "That's what we need to figure out," Morrison said gently. "Mr. Chen, I need you to look at these images carefully. Do you see anyone else on that platform? Anyone at all?" I studied each screenshot with desperate intensity, searching for some trace of red wool, some shadow that might be Sarah's silhouette. But the evidence was damning in its clarity. Every camera angle, every timestamp, they all told the same impossible story. I was alone. "The cameras don't lie," Morrison continued. "We've got coverage from 6 different angles, 3 different camera systems. The main platform camera, the arrival camera, the departure camera, even the camera from the coffee cart. They all show the same thing." My hands shook as I set the photos down. But I saw her. I watched her get on the train. I saw the conductor help her with her suitcase. "We spoke to Conductor Williams this morning. He worked the 7:15 to Chicago last night." Morrison pulled out his notepad, flipping to a page covered in his cramped handwriting. "He remembers you, actually. Says you ran up to the train just as it was pulling out, shouting about someone being on board, but he's certain no one boarded in car 3. In fact, car 3 was completely empty until the next stop. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too warm. I loosened my tie, struggling to breathe. That's impossible. I saw him help her up the steps. I saw her thank him. Mr. Chen, when was the last time you slept? Really slept? The question hit me like a slap. What does that have to do with anything? Stress, grief, exhaustion, they can do funny things to the mind. Make us see things that... I'm not crazy, I snapped, loud enough that other patrons turned to stare. I lowered my voice, leaning across the table. Detective Morrison, I've been married to Sarah for 3 years. I know what she looks like. I know how she moves, how she stands, how she sounds when she walks in heels. That was my wife on platform 7. Morrison's expression softened with what looked like genuine sympathy. I believe you believe that, David, but believing something doesn't make it true. He pulled out another folder, thicker than the first. We've been thorough. Credit card records show no train ticket purchases. Her phone's GPS signal went dead at 4:23 p.m. yesterday, last pinged at her office building. Her car is still in her assigned parking space. Her co-workers say she left work at her usual time, around 4:30. So where is she? My voice cracked on the question. That's what we're trying to figure out. But David... He leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. We need to focus on what actually happened, not what you think you saw. I stared at the security photos spread across the table like tarot cards, revealing a future I couldn't accept. In every single image, I looked like a man having a conversation with empty air, a man reaching toward nothing, a man watching invisible passengers board a train to nowhere. There has to be an explanation, I said finally. There is, Morrison replied, but you're not going to like it. He was right. I didn't like it at all, because if these cameras were telling the truth, then everything I thought I knew about that night was a lie. And if I hadn't seen Sarah get on that train, where the hell was she? I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those security photos, timestamp after timestamp of me standing alone like some kind of madman, gesturing at empty air. By 5 a.m., I gave up pretending and drove back to Union Station. The morning shift was different from the evening crowd. Commuters moved with mechanical precision, clutching coffee cups and checking phones, their faces blank with the exhaustion of another workday beginning. The same metallic smell hung in the air, but without the rain, it felt less ominous, more ordinary. I found the information booth first, where a tired-looking woman with graying hair was sorting through schedule changes. "Excuse me," I said, sliding Sarah's photo across the counter. "Were you working yesterday evening around 7 p.m.? She glanced at the photo. Sarah smiling at our anniversary dinner last year, her green eyes bright with laughter. "Maybe. Why?" "My wife. She went missing. I think she might have taken the 7:15 to Chicago, but..." I hesitated, not sure how to explain the impossibility of it all. "The police say there's no record of her buying a ticket." The woman, her name tag read Helen, picked up the photo, studying it more carefully. "Pretty girl. She looks familiar, actually." My heart jumped. "You remember her?" "Well..." Helen frowned, that expression people get when they're trying to grab hold of a memory that keeps slipping away. "Maybe not her exactly, but someone like her. Red coat?" "Yes, red wool coat, black suitcase." She handed the photo back. "I might have seen someone like that yesterday, but honey, I see 1,000 people a day. They all start to blur together, you know." It wasn't much, but it was something. Someone else had seen a woman in a red coat. I wasn't completely losing my mind. I spent the next 3 hours canvassing the station. The pretzel vendor shook his head apologetically. The shoeshine man barely looked up from his work. The newspaper stand owner just grunted and waved me away. But the coffee cart guy, a young man with paint-stained fingers who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, He paused when I showed him Sarah's photo. "Yeah, I think I saw her," he said slowly. "Red coat, right? She bought a coffee around maybe 7:10, seemed nervous, kept checking her phone." "Are you sure?" I pressed. "The police say—" "Look, man, I don't know what the police say, but I know what I saw. Pretty lady, dark hair, jumpy as hell. She paid with exact change, didn't want a receipt." He shrugged. "I remember because she seemed scared of something." Scared. The word hit me like a physical blow. Sarah had been scared. I was walking back toward platform 7, my mind spinning with this new information when I saw it. A small piece of paper tucked between two slats of a bench, so white against the dark wood that it was almost glowing. My hands shook as I pulled it free. It was a note written in block letters with black ink. "Stop looking or you'll end up like her." The paper felt cold in my hands, despite the warm morning air. I looked around frantically. Commuters rushed past, oblivious, their footsteps echoing off the vaulted ceiling. Had someone been watching me? Were they watching me now? I shoved the note into my pocket and practically ran to my car, my skin crawling with the feeling of invisible eyes tracking my every movement. The parking garage felt like a trap, shadows stretching between concrete pillars like fingers reaching for me. Once inside my Honda, doors locked, I pulled out the note again. The handwriting was careful, deliberate, someone who didn't want their natural hand recognized. But the message was clear enough. Sarah wasn't just missing, someone had done something to her, and now they knew I was looking. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your mailbox at home." I stared at the screen, my blood turning to ice water in my veins. Someone was watching me. Someone knew where I lived. As I drove home through morning traffic, checking my rearview mirror every few seconds for cars that might be following, one thought kept circling through my mind like a vulture. If Sarah was in danger, if someone had threatened her or worse, why hadn't she come to me for help? What could be so terrible that facing it alone seemed like her only option? My mailbox contained a single manila envelope with no return address, postmarked the day before Sarah disappeared. Inside was a photocopy of a driver's license from Nevada, a license bearing Sarah's face but issued to someone named Elena Rodriguez, dated 4 years ago. I stared at the document sitting on my kitchen table, my coffee growing cold in my hands. The woman in the photo was definitely Sarah. Same green eyes, same smile, same small scar above her left eyebrow from when she fell off her bike as a kid. But the name was wrong. Everything was wrong. Elena Rodriguez, born in Las Vegas. Address listed as an apartment complex I'd never heard of. Sarah Martinez was from Portland. She'd lived here her whole life, worked at the Riverside Community Center, had friends I'd met, a childhood she'd shared with me in stories and old photographs. She'd shown me her high school yearbook, for God's sake, unless she hadn't. My hands trembled as I dug through our junk drawer looking for Sarah's documents. Passport, social security card, birth certificate, all the official papers that proved you existed in the world. Papers I'd never really examined closely because why would I? Her birth certificate was there, crisp and official looking. Born Sarah Elena Martinez in Portland General Hospital. But now, holding it up to the light from our kitchen window, I could see something I'd never noticed before. The paper was slightly different texture than it should be. Newer, like it had been printed recently, a forgery. I sat down heavily in our kitchen chair, the same chair where Sarah had eaten breakfast just yesterday morning, humming that tune I didn't recognize. How long had she been living a lie? How long had I been married to someone who didn't exist? My phone rang, making me jump. Unknown number. "Hello?" My voice came out as a croak. "You found the envelope." It was a woman's voice, older, with a slight southern accent. "Good. Now you're starting to understand. Who is this? What do you want? I want to help you find her, but first you need to know what you're really dealing with." There was a pause, the sound of traffic in the background. "Your wife, the woman you know as Sarah, she's been running for 4 years, and now they've found her." "Who's found her? Who are you?" "Someone who cares about what happens to Elena." Meet me tonight, 8 p.m. at Riverside Park, the bench by the duck pond. Come alone. Wait. But the line was dead. I spent the rest of the day in a haze, mechanically going through the motions of normalcy, while my mind raced through memories, looking for clues I'd missed. The way Sarah sometimes flinched when people called her name in public, how she never wanted to take vacations to Vegas or anywhere in Nevada, the nightmare she'd had 6 months ago, waking up screaming about someone finding her. Just a bad dream, she'd said when I'd asked about it. I can't even remember what it was about, but she could remember. I saw it in her eyes now, looking back. She remembered everything. By evening, I'd made my decision. Riverside Park was only 10 minutes from our house. Sarah and I used to walk there on Sunday afternoons, feeding the ducks and talking about our future. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman was already waiting when I arrived, sitting on our usual bench. She was in her 50s, with graying brown hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She looked like somebody's aunt, harmless, ordinary. "David," she said as I approached, like we were old friends. "You know my name. I know a lot about you. Elena talked about you constantly." She patted the bench beside her. "Sit, we don't have much time." I remained standing. "Her name is Sarah." The woman's expression softened with what looked like pity. "Her name is Elena Rodriguez. She was born in Las Vegas 28 years ago. Her father was a small-time accountant who discovered his boss was laundering money for some very dangerous people." My stomach dropped. Miguel Rodriguez died in a car accident 4 years ago, along with his wife and Elena's younger brother. The brake lines had been cut. She met my eyes. Elena was supposed to be in that car too, but she'd stayed late at work. Lucky coincidence. "You're saying someone killed her family?" "I'm saying Elena thought someone killed her family. Whether she was right or wrong doesn't matter now. She believed it enough to disappear completely. New identity, new life, new husband who would never ask too many questions about her past." The words hit me like physical blows. "She married me to hide. She married you because she fell in love with you," the woman said gently. "But yes, the hiding was part of it. David, Elena has been living in terror for 4 years, always looking over her shoulder, always waiting for them to find her." "And now they have?" The woman nodded. 3 weeks ago, someone started asking questions at her work, claiming to be doing a background check for a new job she'd applied for, but Elena hadn't applied for any jobs. 3 weeks ago, right when Sarah had started staying late, started acting strange, started pulling away from me. "Who are you?" I asked. "I used to work with Miguel Rodriguez. I helped Elena disappear after her family died. I've been watching over her ever since, from a distance." She stood up, brushing invisible dust from her coat. "My name is Carmen Silva. And David, I'm very afraid that Elena Rodriguez is already dead." The world seemed to tilt sideways. I grabbed the back of the bench to steady myself. "But I saw her get on the train." "No," Carmen said softly. "You saw what you needed to see. What your mind created to protect you from something too horrible to accept." She started walking away, leaving me alone by the duck pond where Sarah and I had planned our future. "If she's dead," I called after her, "then who sent me that text to check my mailbox?" Carmen stopped but didn't turn around. "Someone who wants you to know the truth." "But why? Why would they want me to know?" When she finally looked back at me, her expression was filled with a sadness that made my chest ache. "Because, David, I don't think they're finished with your family yet." The photo arrived in my email at 3:17 a.m., jolting me awake from the first real sleep I'd managed in days. The sender was listed as friend, and the subject line read, "She's alive." I opened it with shaking hands. Sarah, or Eleanor, I couldn't reconcile the two names in my head, stood outside a coffee shop I didn't recognize, wearing the same red coat from the station. But something was wrong with the image. The timestamp showed it was taken yesterday, a full day after her disappearance, but her hair was shorter, different, and there was something in her posture, the way she held her shoulders, that didn't look like Sarah at all. My phone rang before I could process it fully. "Did you get it?" Detective Morrison's voice was grim. "You saw the photo? Someone sent it to the department too. David, we had our tech guys look at it. It's been doctored. Professionally, but doctored nonetheless. Your wife's face has been digitally placed on someone else's body." My heart sank. "So it's fake?" "The manipulation is sophisticated, but yeah. Someone wants us to think she's alive." Morrison paused. "The question is why?" Before I could respond, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a young woman with dark hair, maybe 25, shifting nervously on my porch. "There's someone at my door," I whispered to Morrison. "Don't answer it. I'm sending a unit." But something about the woman's face stopped me. She looked familiar, though I couldn't place where I'd seen her before. I opened the door with the chain still attached. "Can I help you?" "Are you David Chen?" Her voice was soft, scared. "Elena's husband." My blood went cold. "Who are you?" "My name is Maria Rodriguez. Elena was my sister." I stared at her through the crack in the door. Elena's sister. But Carmen had said Elena's whole family was dead. "That's impossible," I said. "Her family died in a car accident." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "That's what we wanted everyone to believe. Mr. Chen, can I please come in? There are people watching, and if they see me here..." Against every instinct screaming at me to call the police, I let her in. "Elena told me about you," Maria said, sitting on the edge of our couch like she might need to run at any moment. "She said you were kind, said you made her feel safe for the first time in years. Carmen Silva told me your whole family was murdered. Carmen's been protecting us, but she doesn't know everything. Miguel, our father, he faked our deaths after he discovered his boss was laundering money. But the people he was stealing from, they figured it out eventually." "So you're all alive?" Maria shook her head. "Not anymore. They found Miguel 3 days ago. Real death this time." Her voice broke. "Elena knew they were closing in. She was trying to protect you by disappearing. But I saw her get on that train." "Mr. Chen." Maria looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "Elena never made it to the station. She was taken from the parking garage at her office. I saw the security footage." The room seemed to spin. "That's impossible. I saw her." "You saw what someone wanted you to see." My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Stop talking to her or join your wife." Maria saw my face change as I read it. "They know I'm here," she whispered. Outside, a car engine started. "We need to go," Maria said, standing. "Right now." But as I looked at her face in the lamplight, something clicked into place. The resemblance to Sarah was there, but subtle, too subtle. "You're not her sister," I said slowly. Maria's expression crumbled. "I'm sorry, David. I'm so sorry." Before I could ask what she was apologizing for, my front window exploded inward. Glass shards scattered across our living room floor like deadly confetti as Maria grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the back door. Through the broken window, I could see the silhouette of someone moving across my front yard. "This way!" Maria hissed, but I jerked away from her. "Who are you really?" I demanded, even as footsteps crunched through the glass behind us. "Someone trying to save your life," she said. "David, we can sort this out later, but right now..." The front door exploded open. 2 men in dark jackets entered, and I didn't wait to see what they wanted. Maria and I bolted through the kitchen toward the back exit. We made it 3 blocks before she finally stopped running, both of us gasping for breath behind a 24-hour laundromat. The fluorescent lights inside cast everything in harsh, unforgiving white. "Start talking," I said. "Now." Maria leaned against the brick wall, her face pale in the artificial light. "My real name is Detective Lisa Santos, Portland PD. I've been working undercover, investigating the money laundering ring that killed Elena's family." "You're a cop?" "Elena's father wasn't just an accountant. He was laundering money for Vincent Carrera, one of the biggest crime bosses on the West Coast. When Miguel tried to turn state's evidence, Carrera had the whole family eliminated. But Elena survived. Elena was supposed to die with them. When she didn't, Carrera's people have been hunting her ever since. Santos wiped blood from a cut on her cheek. We've been using her as bait. The words hit me like a physical blow. You've been using my wife as bait? She volunteered. Elena wanted Carrera behind bars as much as we did. The plan was to make Carrera think she was going to testify, draw his people out into the open where we could arrest them. Then where is she? Santos's expression crumbled. That's what we're trying to figure out. 3 days ago, Elena missed her check-in. We found blood in her office parking garage. David, we think something went wrong. My legs felt weak. I slumped against the laundromat wall. The train. I saw her get on the train. You saw what your mind created to protect you from the truth. Elena never made it to Union Station. Santos pulled out her phone, showing me security footage from Sarah's office building. This is from 4:23 p.m., the day she disappeared. The grainy video showed Elena, Sarah, walking toward her car in the underground garage. A black SUV pulled up beside her. 2 men got out. There was a brief struggle, and then she was gone. But I got a text from her to meet at the station, I said weakly. They used her phone. We traced the signal. It pinged from a warehouse district about 20 miles from Union Station. Everything I thought I knew was collapsing. So when I saw her on the platform, grief, shock, your mind trying to create a reality where your wife was still alive and safe. Santos put her hand on my shoulder. David, trauma can make us see things that aren't there. It's not your fault. Then who's been sending me the messages, the photos? Carrera's people. They've been playing games, trying to figure out what Elena told you, what evidence she might have shared. I thought about the threatening note, the doctored photograph, all the psychological torture of the past few days. They've been messing with my head. Classic intimidation tactics. Make you question your own sanity. Keep you confused and afraid. A car turned the corner, headlights sweeping across us. Santos tensed, her hand moving towards something under her jacket. Is that them? I whispered. The car slowed as it passed the laundromat. Through the windshield, I could see the driver clearly. It was Sarah. That's impossible, Santos whispered beside me, but I was already running toward the street. Sarah! I shouted, chasing after the sedan as it picked up speed. The car stopped abruptly 50 yards ahead. The driver's door opened and a woman got out. In the dim streetlight, she looked exactly like my wife. Same height, same hair, same red coat. But as I got closer, the illusion shattered. This woman's face was similar but wrong, like looking at Sarah through a funhouse mirror. Her features were too sharp, her eyes too cold. You must be the husband, she said with a smile that never reached her eyes. Her voice was Sarah's voice, but with an edge of cruelty that made my skin crawl. Santos caught up to me, breathing hard. David, get back! The woman laughed. Detective Santos, you really thought you could use Elena as bait without consequences. Where is she? I demanded. Elena Rodriguez died 4 years ago in that car accident, just like the newspapers said. The woman you married, the woman you thought you knew, she was never real. That's not true. Isn't it? Think about it, David. Did you ever meet any of Sarah's childhood friends? Did you ever visit the house where she supposedly grew up? Did you ever wonder why she had no photos from before you met her? The questions hit like bullets, because the truth was, I hadn't wondered. I'd been so grateful to find someone who loved me that I'd never questioned the gaps in her past. She was running a long con, the woman continued. Elena Rodriguez was a professional identity thief. She stole the identity of Sarah Martinez, a real woman who died in a hiking accident in Oregon 5 years ago. You're lying. Am I? Check the obituaries, David. Sarah Martinez died falling from Angel's Rest Trail in March 2019. Elena found her death certificate and became her. Santos stepped forward, her gun drawn. Enough games. Where is Elena? The woman reached into her coat, and for a moment I thought she was going for a weapon. Instead, she pulled out a phone and played a video. The screen showed a concrete room, windowless and grey. Sarah, Elena, whatever her real name was, sat tied to a chair, her face bruised, but her eyes defiant. She's alive, I breathed. For now. The woman pocketed the phone. Elena stole something that belongs to my employer. If she wants to live, she needs to tell us where it is. What did she steal? $23 million in cryptocurrency keys. Miguel Rodriguez didn't just launder money, he digitized it, converted Carrera's cash into untraceable digital currency. And Elena has the access codes. Santos kept her gun trained on the woman. Where is she being held? Somewhere you'll never find her. The woman got back into her car. But don't worry, David. If Elena cooperates, you might see her again. But wait! I ran toward the car, but it was already pulling away. Santos grabbed my arm. Let her go. We'll trace the license plate, track them down. She has Sarah, Elena. Whatever her name is, they have my wife. David, I need you to think carefully. In all the time you were married, did Elena ever give you anything for safekeeping? Documents, a USB drive, anything that seemed important? I started to shake my head, then stopped. Wait. Last month, she gave me a jewelry box. Said it was her grandmother's, but it was locked and she said she'd lost the key. Santos's eyes widened. Where is it now? At home, in our bedroom closet. We looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. If Elena had hidden $23 million worth of cryptocurrency keys in a jewelry box, it might be the only bargaining chip we had to get her back alive. The jewelry box sat on our kitchen table like a small wooden bomb. Santos had picked the lock in under 30 seconds, revealing its contents: a single USB drive wrapped in tissue paper and a handwritten note. David, the note began, if you're reading this, then something has happened to me, and the people I've been running from have found us. I'm sorry for all the lies. I'm sorry for dragging you into this nightmare. The drive contains everything: bank records, cryptocurrency wallets, evidence of Vincent Carrera's money laundering operation. But most importantly, it contains proof that Detective Morrison has been working for Carrera all along. My blood went cold. Morrison's dirty. Santos nodded grimly. We suspected someone in the department was feeding information to Carrera, but we couldn't prove it. Elena must have figured it out. That's why he was so insistent that I was hallucinating, that Sarah never got on the train. He was trying to make me doubt myself, stop investigating. And it almost worked. Santos plugged the drive into her laptop. Jesus Christ! Elena documented everything. Bank transfers, meeting locations, recorded phone conversations. Morrison's been on Carrera's payroll for 3 years. My phone rang. Morrison's name appeared on the screen. Answer it, Santos whispered. Act normal. We need to know what he knows. Hello? David, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for hours. There was an incident at your house. Broken windows, signs of a struggle. Where are you? I'm staying at a hotel. I was scared. Smart man. Listen, I think I have a lead on Sarah. Can you meet me at the old Pier warehouse district? I'd rather not discuss this over the phone. Santos was already shaking her head, mouthing trap. Which warehouse? I asked. Building 47, near the river, 1 hour. And David, come alone. If these people think you brought backup, they'll kill your wife. The line went dead. He's going to kill you, Santos said flatly. Maybe. But what if he really does have Elena? What if this is the only chance to get her back? It's a setup. Morrison's been playing you from the beginning. The security footage, the witness statements, he probably fabricated all of it to make you think you were losing your mind. Then why haven't they killed me already? Because they needed you to find that drive. Elena hid it well. The only person who could locate it was someone who knew her intimately, someone who lived with her every day. I looked at the USB drive, this small piece of plastic that contained enough evidence to destroy a criminal empire and enough cryptocurrency to fund a small country. So now they don't need me anymore. No, Santos said quietly. Now you're just a loose end. Outside, car doors slammed. Through our broken front window, I could see flashlights moving across the yard. They found us, Santos whispered, drawing her weapon. Back door? Already covered. I can see movement in the alley. We were trapped. I clutched the USB drive in my sweaty palm, wondering if this small piece of evidence was worth dying for. "David!" Morrison's voice echoed from outside. "I know you're in there. We just want to talk." Santos met my eyes. "Whatever happens, don't let them get that drive." The front door exploded inward for the second time that night, and Vincent Carrera's men poured into my house like a dark tide. They zip-tied our hands behind our backs and threw us into the back of a black SUV. The drive from my house to the warehouse district took 23 minutes. I counted every second, trying to stay calm, trying to think of a way out of this nightmare. The warehouse was exactly what you'd expect from a crime boss's hideout. Concrete walls, flickering fluorescent lights, and the smell of rust and decay. Morrison was waiting for us inside, but he looked different now. Gone was the weary, sympathetic detective. This man's eyes were hard, calculating. "David," he said, as Carrera's men forced me to my knees, "I really hoped it wouldn't come to this. Where's my wife?" "Safe, for now. But that depends entirely on your cooperation." They'd set up a chair in the middle of the warehouse floor, and as my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I saw her. Elena. I still couldn't think of her as anyone else. Sat bound and gagged, her face bruised, but her eyes alert. When she saw me, she made a muffled sound of protest. "The USB drive, David, where is it?" I looked at Elena, then at Santos, who was kneeling beside me with blood trickling from her nose. "I don't know what you're talking about." Morrison backhanded me across the face, the impact sending stars across my vision. "We know Elena gave you something. We've torn apart her office, her car, every place she might have hidden evidence. The only place left is your house. You already searched my house. Twice. Not thoroughly enough, apparently." Morrison crouched down until we were eye level. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me where Elena hid the evidence. In exchange, I'll make sure you both die quickly instead of spending the next few hours begging for death." "That's not much of an incentive." Morrison smiled without humor. "You're right. Let me sweeten the deal." He walked over to Elena and pressed a gun to her temple. "You have 30 seconds to decide. The evidence, or I blow her brains out right here." "Wait!" I struggled against the zip ties, feeling the plastic cut into my wrists. "Wait, I'll tell you." "David, no!" Santos hissed beside me. 20 seconds. My mind raced. The USB drive was still in my pocket. Somehow they'd missed it during the quick search at my house. But if I gave it to them, they'd kill us all anyway. If I didn't, Elena died in 15 seconds. 10 seconds. "It's in my pocket," I shouted. "Left front pocket." Morrison reached into my jacket and pulled out the drive, holding it up to the light like a trophy. "Vincent's going to be very pleased. Now, let her go." "Oh, David." Morrison's expression was almost pitying. "You still don't understand, do you?" He walked back to Elena and yanked the gag from her mouth. She gasped for air, then looked directly at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not love, not fear, but something cold and calculating. "I'm sorry, David," she said in a voice that sounded like Sarah's, but felt like a stranger's. "I really did love you, but this was always the plan." The words hit me harder than Morrison's backhand. "What?" "Elena Rodriguez died 4 years ago, just like I told you. But Sarah Martinez, she's very much alive." The woman I'd married smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. "My real name is Sarah Martinez. I'm Vincent Carrera's daughter." The warehouse seemed to spin around me. "That's impossible. I've been undercover for 2 years, David. Living with you, learning about you, waiting for my father's enemies to surface. Elena Rodriguez was a threat. She had evidence that could destroy our operation, so we created a trap. You used me as bait. The marriage was real. My feelings for you were real. But yes, ultimately you were bait. We knew that if we could draw Elena out of hiding, make her think she was safe, she'd eventually contact her old allies." Sarah looked at Santos. "Like Detective Lisa Santos here, who's been investigating my father for 3 years. Santos glared back. Your father's a murderer. My father's a businessman. Elena Rodriguez and her family were killed because they tried to steal from him. You've been chasing ghosts, detective. My world was collapsing piece by piece. The woman I'd loved, the marriage I'd treasured, the life I'd built, all of it had been an elaborate lie. So what happens now? I asked, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Sarah's expression softened, and for a moment she looked like the woman who used to make me coffee every morning. Now? Now you disappear, David. New identity, new life, far away from Portland. You'll be comfortable. My father's generous with people who help him. And if I refuse, then Detective Santos dies right now, and you join her in about an hour. I looked at Santos, then back at Sarah. The woman I'd married, who'd shared my bed and my dreams and my stupid jokes about weekend grocery runs. She was offering me a way out, life in exchange for silence. I need a minute to think. Sarah nodded to Morrison, who stepped back but kept his gun drawn. 1 minute, David, then you decide. The seconds ticked by in the dim warehouse as I weighed my options. Santos caught my eye and gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. She'd rather die than let Carrera's operation continue. Sarah, or whoever she really was, watched me with an expression that mixed hope and resignation. Despite everything, part of me still believed her when she said her feelings had been real. "Time's up," Morrison said. I looked at the woman I'd married one last time. "I have just one question." "What? If this was all fake, if you were just playing a role, why did you look so scared that night at the train station? Why did you look back at me like you were saying goodbye forever?" For the first time since this nightmare began, Sarah's composure cracked, her eyes filled with tears, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Because I was saying goodbye. That morning I found out my father had ordered your death. The only way I could save you was to disappear from your life completely." She wiped her eyes with her bound hands. "I was going to take the train to Chicago, then disappear forever. Let you think I'd abandoned you rather than watch you die because of me. But you never got on the train. My father's men intercepted me in the parking garage. They brought me here, told me the new plan, use you to draw out Elena Rodriguez's allies, then eliminate everyone who knew too much." She looked at Santos, then back at me, "Including you." The pieces clicked into place. "So, when I saw you on the platform, you saw what you needed to see. A wife who was leaving you, not a wife who was trying to save your life." Morrison stepped forward impatiently. "Enough of this reunion bullshit. What's your decision, David?" I looked around the warehouse, at Sarah, at Santos, at Morrison, and the armed men waiting in the shadows. Then I smiled. "My decision is that you're all idiots." Morrison raised his gun. "What? Detective Santos isn't Elena Rodriguez's ally. She's FBI, and this warehouse has been surrounded for the past 10 minutes. The words were barely out of my mouth when the loading dock doors exploded inward. FBI agents in tactical gear poured through every entrance, shouting commands and training assault rifles on Carrera's men. In the chaos that followed, gunfire, screaming, the acrid smell of smoke grenades, I lost sight of Sarah. When the dust settled and the zip ties were cut from my wrists, she was gone. Morrison was dead, shot while trying to reach a concealed weapon. 3 of Carrera's men were in custody, but Sarah Martinez, or whoever she really was, had vanished like smoke. Agent Torres, Santos's FBI contact, found me sitting on a crate in the corner of the warehouse, staring at my hands. "How did you know backup was coming?" he asked. "I didn't. I was bluffing." I looked up at him. "Is Sarah really Carrera's daughter?" "We think so. Vincent Carrera has been using family members as deep-cover operatives for years. Your wife was probably groomed for this role since she was a teenager. So everything was a lie." "Maybe not everything," Santos said, limping over with her arm in a sling. "David, the way she looked at you in there, that wasn't acting. Whatever else was fake, I think her feelings for you were real." 6 months later, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a single train ticket, destination unknown, departure date blank, and a handwritten note. David, I know you'll probably never forgive me, and you shouldn't, but I need you to know that loving you was the only real thing in a life built on lies. Don't look for me. You wouldn't like what you'd find. S. I kept the ticket in my wallet for 3 weeks before finally throwing it away. But sometimes, late at night, I still find myself wondering, if I'd gotten on that train to nowhere, would I have found the woman I married, or would I have discovered that she never existed at all? The truth is, I'm not sure I want to know the answer. Some mysteries are better left unsolved.